This is All of It. I'm Allison Stewart, live from the WNYC studios in Soho. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. I'm really grateful that you're here. On today's show, actor Thomas Sadoski joins us to discuss his new film, Group, The Schopenhauer Effect, along with director Alexis Lloyd and co-star, a real-life psychoanalyst, Dr. Elliot Zeisel. Plus, we'll recap last night's Academy Awards with Louis Vertel. He's the co-host of the Keep It podcast and an Oscars historian. That's the plan, so let's get this started with Tony Award-winning actor Jesse Tyler Ferguson. In a revival of the play True, audience members get an intimate look into the life of Truman Capote. And I say intimate because this play is staged inside a real Gilded Age mansion in the library, of course. Imagine that you have entered the home of Capote. We meet him just before Christmas. He's in a tough spot. His high society friends aren't speaking with him after an excerpt of his proposed new novel was published in a magazine, a gossipy section that revealed some stories about the wealthy women of Manhattan. He has become a social pariah. Alone in his apartment, Truman begins to talk to himself and to the audience. We learn about his struggles with addiction, loneliness, love, and loss. True is running in the library of the House of the Redeemer on East 95th Street through May 3rd. And I'm joined now by Jesse Tyler Ferguson, who plays Truman Capote. It is nice to meet you in real life.
Nice to meet you, although I saw you this weekend at my show.
I was there. It is such an intimate setting. It's about 99 people in the room.
Yes, 99.
Do you get to see people one-on-one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's been really interesting. I think you saw my 9th or 10th preview, so I had a few under my belt, but I really see everything, and I see everyone's responses. There's some people who are not quite comfortable having me quite so close.
Sure.
There's some people who are very comfortable having me close. If you glance down at your watch, even for a moment, I see that. I have people who have tears in their eyes, and I see that. So I see everything. I've never experienced doing a play where I'm so in tune with what the audience is going through.
Does that change each performance a little bit?
Oh, yeah, for sure. One of my favorite parts about being a live theater actor is that, every performance is different and the audience informs so much of that. But I'm not used to having the line blurred between myself and them as blurred as it is in this play.
Sure.
We share not only rarefied air, but like literal space together.
Sure. It's so interesting because it was funny to watch the audience a little bit. Some people look away. Some people want to engage with you a little bit. It was just an interesting place to be.
We made eye contact.
We did make eye contact.
And I remember on what line, too. Oh. That's how in tune I am.
Wow.
I say something, the rich are very nervous with you if they think you don't have any money. And I think I looked right at you.
Oh.
Does that feel familiar?
It does feel familiar. It does, yes. It was so interesting. Let me ask you about Truman Capote. What was your relationship with Truman Capote's work?
I read In Cold Blood in high school. It was required reading. I loved it. I felt very, when I was reading In Cold Blood, I was like, how is this something that's required? I mean, it's very dark. I was born in 75. So I think, in the 80s in Albuquerque, New Mexico, it wasn't super weird for us to be reading this book, but I couldn't believe that I was being allowed to read this and that it was required of me too. And it was unlike anything I'd ever read before. I mean, it was unlike anything that had ever been written before, something that marries true crime and, fiction. He sort of created his own genre with that book. And then after that, I just became fascinated with him as a person. He sort of lived in, he was on my TV on like different talk shows.
Mike Douglas.
Yeah. And I just was aware of this like really strange, peculiar man who had a very strange way of speaking. And I just became fascinated with him. And then, I became a fan of other people's portrayals of him.
Yeah.
Philip Seymour Hoffman being the first one that sort of really struck a chord with me. I loved the movie Truman that he won an Oscar for, or Capote rather is the name of that film. And Yeah, it was very fascinating as an actor to then see people tackle this character and sort of seeing how far you could go with that characterization and still make it a human and still make it someone that is, an extension of that actor. So yeah.
I'm curious, did you work with your vocal coach, Kate Wilson?
Kate Wilson, yeah. She and I have been working together for quite some time, and I have done several projects with her. I adore her. She's on staff at Juilliard, and I've done everything from Shakespeare in the Park to my last outing on Take Me Out. I worked with her on that, and so I called her when I found out I was going to be doing this, and I asked her if she could help me out. And she does help me with dialect a little bit. He was born in Monroeville, Alabama, so that dialect creeps out. I think he was one of those people that once he moved to New York, he tried to get rid of his accent. So, but it does creep out specifically when he drinks. So that was fun, like finding places for that to emerge. And then also just, where his voice sits. He has a lot more attic in his voice than I do. And I could always push that and go higher than I expect I could go. That being said, that it's very taxing on my voice. It sometimes feels at the end of a show like I've been singing for 90 minutes. So learning how to then take care of my voice and warm down, as they say, and make sure that I'm being quiet during the day. And she gave me a lot of tools around that as well, Kate Wilson.
It's also interesting you have his mannerisms down, the way he sort of strokes his eyebrow when he's thinking.
That's true. And I think that I innately share some of those mannerisms.
Oh, funny.
Because certain things, like I remember I would do that with my eyebrow. I'd do this, or like I would sort of brush my leg of my pants sometimes. And Chris Lloyd and Steve Levitan, who created Modern Family, would always make fun of me for that. Like like if they were to do an imitation of me, it would be like one of those two moves. So I've been able to incorporate those kind of seamlessly. But then there's other things, like there's so much great footage of Truman in interview or in documentaries. And so stealing his mannerisms and his physicality has been very easy and very accessible.
What's been the hardest thing to figure out about him?
The hardest thing to figure out about him, I think. Oh, that's such a great question, because I feel for me, it's been the marriage of me and him that's been hard for me to figure out, because I want to capture him, but I want to bring humanity to him. And for me as an actor, I've always found my pathway to humanity is by bringing myself into it and using that as the conduit for humanity. And so finding that way that I can sort of work alongside this character has been challenging, but not being Jesse being Capote, but rather this sort of conglomeration of the two of us. That's been a really interesting challenge for me.
My guest is Tony Award-winning actor Jesse Tyler Ferguson. We're discussing his transformation into Truman Capote in the off-Broadway show True, which is staged in a real library on the Upper East Side. It's running at the House of the Redeemer through May 3rd. Okay, when we encounter Truman Capote at the beginning of this play, what's going on in his life?
It's a few days before Christmas, and he is in the midst of a crisis. He has been ostracized by his closest friends. And a lot of this story, a lot of people know about now because of Ryan Murphy's very wonderful series, Capote versus the Swans, which was on television a few years ago, which tackles the same period in Capote's life. But he let Esquire publish a chapter of his book, Answered Prayers, which he had been working on for 20 years. He started working on Answered Prayers before he even started working on In Cold Blood. And it was a piece he kept coming back to. And he basically was drawing from the life experiences of his closest friends, the Paleys and the Whitneys and the Coles and Slim Keith and Gloria Vanderbilt and all these sort of, the doyens of New York. And he was taking their moments with him, what they thought were their private moments with him, and recording them and in his mind and writing about them. And he published a chapter of Answered Prayers, rather, to sort of lure himself out of a depression, as he says in the play. And these women read their stories in the pages of Esquire, and they were obviously very angry with him. and turned their backs on him, and he was left alone. I always say he was sort of like one of the first people canceled. I mean, like he was canceled before cancel culture really was a thing.
I thought was interesting in the play, and it was something that my friend and I discussed because we were both journalists afterward. And it was a subject, the idea that writers are observing you, even if you say you're friends with them. They're always observing you. In your version, does he think the people he hangs out with are his friends, or is he just observing the elite of New York?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think that he is observing the elite of New York, but he does care for these people. I know he was very close with Bay Paley and Slim Keith. They were two of his closest friends. And all of his quote-unquote swans, I think he had a great affinity toward. But I think there was also they were allowed into his circle because of their status. Like he was obsessed with status and obsessed with people who came from wealth. And he wanted to run in those circles, even though he didn't have a lot of that money himself, but he wanted to be invited on the yachts. And, it's sort of like how I look at like a lot of influencers today. I see like people on some of these like yachts with these famous people. Like, how did they end up there?
How'd they get there?
They just like made good friends with the people who happen to own these, boats. But, I think he did care for them deeply, but also I think he assumed because he was a writer that these people knew that he was taking notes. And so when they were angry at him for writing about them, it's like they should have known.
Yeah.
You don't befriend a writer and assume that they're not taking notes. He says in the play, what did they think I was there for? The intellectual stimulation and wit? I'm the one that brought the intellectual and stimulation and wit to the party,
It's so interesting. There's a point when he gets this huge, enormous sort of poinsettias comes to his door, and he's highly offended by this.
Highly offended.
What do the poinsettias mean to him?
It's tacky.
Tacky? Yeah.
It's so tacky.
I like them, but
I do too. Like I always have poinsettias at our house over the holidays. I think they're great. He hates them. He says it in the play. Poinsettias are the Bob Goulet of botany. He's offended by it, which also is like such a diss to Bob Goulet. But like he's the type of guy who disses people when they don't even ask for it.
Yeah.
He says I can't imagine a friend who would even think about giving me such a tacky thing. I don't even want to know who they're from. So it's one of the first moments in the play is him receiving this delivery.
Yeah.
A truckload of poinsettias.
And Bob Goulet takes one for the team.
I know, right? What did he do? He wasn't hurting anyone.
So the production of this is amazing because you are inside this beautiful library. There's only 99 seats, as I mentioned. What changes about your approach as an actor when you're in such an intimate space?
When we decided to do this play, I felt it has to be something that's done environmentally. I really wanted people to enter into the space and feel like they're already immersed in that world before the play even starts. The play takes place in Truman Capote's living room, and it can be done on a stage, and it was done on a stage when Robert Morse did it in 89 and 90. But I wanted it to feel different. I was like, how can I make this play feel current and different and separate from what was already brilliantly done? And so I thought, let's actually make people sit in the living room. And it's one of those things when I walk in, it's like you are in my space. It's less of a shared space. It's more like you're eavesdropping. And there's something a little voyeuristic about it as well. And it definitely changes my relationship with the audience. There are certain things that only one side of the house will see because my back is to the other side. And it's my job to make sure everyone feels included at one point. I move around the room constantly. So everyone at one point is very close to me. There's not a bad seat in the house. You could be sitting somewhere thinking, oh, I'm so far away from him. But it's like when you go see a concert and like Britney Spears was on a revolving stage and all of a sudden she gets floated over to you. That's what I feel like. I'm basically like Beyonce. I move around
like
the
Beyonce?
stadium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I move around the stadium.
My guest is Tony Award-winning actor Jesse Tyler Ferguson. We're discussing Truman Capote show, off-Broadway show. It's called True, which is staged in a library on the Upper East Side. It's running at the House of the Redeemer through May 3rd. We should mention you're not the only performer on
That's right.
stage.
It is a one-man show technically, but we have allotted some of the lines to my brilliant co-star, Charlotte Dambois.
She's amazing.
She's gorgeous and wonderful. This was a concept that Rob Ashford had, my director. We wanted to include an element of the women in his life. And so that is being embodied by Charlotte Dambois, who is a Tony-nominated actress and dancer. She's incredible.
What's it like to get to dance with her?
I do get to dance with her. I'm like, you can lead me, Charlotte. You can lead me. Like, she's a very skilled dancer, and but she's like, no, you lead me, you lead me. But yeah, she embodies the swans. At some point, she sort of embodies the spirit of my mother. There's a scene from my past that plays out with her. I love having her in the room with me. It makes it feel less lonely, and I just feel like she brings an added layer of complexity to the piece.
We also get to know Truman through phone calls he has. What's revealing about him when he speaks to people on the phone?
Yeah, well, the people who are calling him are people who are still willing to talk to him. So he has a great affinity to them. These are the people who are his lifeline still. So when the phone rings and it's someone... I feel like when the phone rings, he's always a little nervous. Like, is this bad news or something? And if it's someone who he cares about, like Carol Matthau, Walter Matthau's wife, calls at one point, and he has a lovely conversation with her. There's a wonderful exchange with a Western Union operator who confesses that she's a fan of his. And his friend Jan calls at one point. And I should also mention, I don't know if you saw this in the program notes, but these voices of the people who call are voiced by some very special cameos: Kristen Chenoweth, Jan Krakowski, and Sandra Oh.
Oh, wow.
Fun little Easter eggs there. Yeah, I in our digital program, there's a thanks to them. But yeah, those are our voices that are calling in.
There's a moment when you play a recording of Truman. He's recording his life's work for I think it's his biographer. Yeah. Is that him or is that you?
That's me.
That's you.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, he was recording pieces for Gerald Clark, who wrote his biography. And it's sort of, in the play, it's the device that starts him talking about his life. And it's sort of the reason why he's telling his story.
He also says, sort of to the audience, like, we all talk to ourselves, don't we?
Yeah.
Do you talk to yourself?
I do.
Yeah.
All the time. Like, I talk about the lists I need to make. And I sometimes talk myself off ledges. Like, it's okay. I'll just deal with that later. Like, no one's in the room except for me.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's good. You're a good listener.
Yeah, exactly.
We learn a lot about the loneliness that Truman Capote was going through. How did you want to convey his loneliness to the audience?
I think there's a lot of people who feel like he did a really bad thing by exposing the lives of his friends. And I don't disagree with them. It's my job as an actor to bring humanity to him. And also, I care for him deeply. I need to care for him. And one of the things I'm so proud of is I get to play Capote as an out gay man. And I get to bring my own experiences of feeling ostracized as a child. And I get to bring that layer of complexity to him. And so there are parts of the story that I find very moving and that bring tears to my eyes. And I let that happen. And I try and let Capote's conflict with what's going on in his life really come out. He lets down his guard because technically, even though there's an audience in his living room, he's in his own space. He's in his safe space. And so he feels safe enough to, reveal certain parts of himself. And I think that's a really interesting part of the play is I think it allows us to see kind of his struggle with what's going on in his life and his loneliness and his deep desire to reconnect with some of the people who have abandoned him.
We also get to witness his, I guess, sort of addiction.
Yeah, alcoholism and addiction, sure.
There's also cocaine at one point.
Cocaine, yes.
What role does addiction play in this story?
Well, he was known to be quite a partier after the success of In Cold Blood. He became sort of the toast of the town, and he really lost himself in the nightclub scene. And he became a very heavy drinker. I mean, if you look at photos of him during the height of In Cold Blood, he was trim and healthy. And then you look, 10 years later, he's really gone downhill. He's very bloated, and he became a victim of alcoholism and addiction. And, a lot of it was self-medicating to get through this very difficult time in his life. But also he was going through a crisis of not being able to write. And he was not able to complete this book, Answered Prayers, which he had been promised to complete for 20 years. And so, he was self-medicating and basically using any sort of he was using alcohol and booze to keep his mind off of the fact that he was really in a crisis with being able to write.
You read some of Capote's work out loud in the play. What do you admire about his writing?
Oh, God. I mean, there's such eloquence in his writing. Even when he's being super tart about something or super, even when he's like categorizing someone and like just coming at them, it's done so beautifully and elegantly. I mean, he really knows how to throw a diss. I mean,
just sculpt with a scalpel, right?
Yes,
Just
exactly.
Slice with a scalpel.
And I just find his prose to be stunning, and it was present in his early writing. I've read his very, very early work, and it was all there. And then you read some of his writing that he wrote at the end of his life, and it's still there and even deeper. And he really brought his life experience into his writing. And there's just no one compares to him. And his writing really holds up. I mean, In Cold Blood is still such a fantastic read.
Why do you think he remains such a fascination for people? You mentioned Ryan Murphy's The Swans. How many movies and plays have been done about him? What is it about him that's so fascinating?
I think because he was such an interesting character in his real life, as well as such a wonderful writer. I also feel like I said before, he was one of the first people canceled.
Yeah.
Like before cancel culture existed, he was truly canceled very publicly. But also we have this deep fascination with reality TV now and, the Real Housewives and all this stuff. And he was sort of operating on that level before that existed. I mean, he was writing about these people who we were fascinated by that lived in these gilded towers that we didn't have access to. And he was exposing their secrets. And I think that there's that thing that we're so fascinated by now with Real Housewives and reality stars and The Bachelorette and all these like, reality TV, I think he was already onto that back then. And so he was tapping into something that I feel like we didn't even realize we were interested in.
How do you get psyched up to do the show? It's just you.
Yeah. Well, coffee, coffee and sleep. Both of those things are very important. Every night before I go out on stage, before I enter that room with those 99 people, I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified.
Really?
But this is pretty similar to every time I walk out on stage. The minute I walk out, though, the second I walk out, I relax. There's something about being in front of an audience that just makes me feel so good. And I've done my work. I've prepared. I know what I'm doing. I know I'm in charge of that piece, and I'm in charge of that room. And I feel like I just want to give these people a great show. And so the minute I walk into that shared space, I get a jolt of adrenaline that's unlike anything I've ever felt before, and it always gets me through.
My guest has been Jesse Tyler Ferguson. You can see him transform into Truman Capote in the show True, which is on the Upper East Side. It's running at the House of the Redeemer through May 3rd. It has been really nice to have you.
Thank you for having me, my dear.
So good.